So we all know that like this same story that we've experienced ourselves, but that we also hear everyone else repeating over and over again about how there was this trip planned or this graduation or this birthday party, whatever it was, there was some kind of event that was planned for, March or April, May, the summer, whatever. And maybe it's some event that could be moved and it's been rescheduled, or maybe it's up in the air and you don't really know, like, are they going to cancel it or postpone it or what exactly? Like, I remember, like, with the Olympics, I guess, like, they're trying to do it next year or whatever. And so it's like if it doesn't matter what it was that you had in your mind, or in your personal future, but now there's like a kind of um, missing piece there. Like you used some whiteout and you just like took out that one thing, except that like there's a lot of other things that didn't get taken out, like some of the stuff obviously that you do at home, or if you're still going to work, those things are still happening. But it's like the larger events, not larger in importance, but kind of like landmark events. Like maybe you always see certain people on Cinco de Mayo, or maybe you are a senior in high school and you don't really get any of the experiences that some people associate with like graduation, whether it's yearbooks or uh, just hugging friends or seeing people that you might not see for a long time. Um, those sorts of experiences have all turned into a common absence. And that absence becomes its own thing that we're all experiencing. Except that, unlike the individual things, the birthdays, the graduations, the vacations, those things are individual, and this absence is no longer individual. It's common. It's the same absence. It's not your absence. It's not my absence. We're all feeling this now. And that's what makes the story not just a common story or a common theme. It's about the same thing that your story's about. It's about now, but not like in just a perpetual now. It's in a kind of like historical now, because what's left in the place of that event that was personal is actually a sense of the historical moment. What was consciousness of a personal future became consciousness of a historical present, so that we all have a different understanding of the permanence of our actions. I mean this in the sense that what the transition from a personal future to this absence, and the commonality of this absence, the consciousness of all of this is historical consciousness. We can see this in the way it plays out all over, is that when you go out in the world, your decisions, your actions have a resonance that they didn't before. If you touch something, you're conscious of it. If someone isn't following the new standards, then you're conscious of it. You're conscious of the fact that you're unfamiliar with these new standards. Maybe you're conscious of the fact that these standards are not set in stone and they change constantly, and that makes them difficult to be confident in. But we all have this experience of the way that our actions have a kind of permanence. And this permanence, I would argue, is essentially the gravity of our actions. It's how much pull do they have on other things? How long do they last? You can see this in terms of like larger contexts as well. What maybe communities are doing, or what states are doing, what governments are doing, what the world is doing in this moment. How it is that the pandemic of 2020 will be remembered. But it's also a kind of awareness that what you're doing is a way of coping that's available to you at this time. Meaning, there's not every possible thing you could ever imagine. There's only the movies that have been made up to now. There's only the news that can be consumed in one day. There's only the kinds of distractions that are available to you in your house, or the monotony of still having to go to work during this crisis, which is confusing and contradictory. The things we're experiencing are so personal and yet so common, because what we're experiencing is filling that same void. We started with something so specifically ours. It was our April or our May. But that specific thing to us individually became a specific thing to us all in this moment. What we're doing to cope. And I think that this sense of history, this consciousness of history, what I've been calling for myself is gravity, this sense of gravity, this supersedes a kind of discussion about morality or even ethics. Not because those things don't matter, but that those questions also need to be asked now, which only emphasizes the significance of the gravity, because even your moral decisions have gravity. Your ethical decisions have gravity. And this becomes all the much more apparent the more we're surrounded by death, or fear of death, or monotony, or cabin fever, isolation. These things make us all aware of what it is that the choices that we have, and what it is that those choices mean about us. How those choices make us not only what we would be remembered for, but literally what we are. If you're sitting in your apartment day after day, it's plain to see that you're becoming exactly what you do all the time. If you've just been sitting on the couch, you're probably getting flabby and gaining weight and running out of things to watch. If you like to exercise all the time, you're probably running out of ways to exercise that are engaging because you've already maxed out what's possible to do inside of your apartment. So there's limitations to the setting of you trying to be yourself, and those limitations are exactly that historical gravity. The limitations are the thing that's the same for everyone else sitting in their apartment. In this case, the individuality is not the individuality of all of us individually, it's the individuality of the moment. You often hear this term unprecedented, and unprecedented is kind of cliche. Maybe like what's really needed is a sort of individuality. It's just not individuality of people, it's individuality of time. That this is a unique moment, and that we don't know how long a moment lasts, but we're definitely sure that we're in one, an individual moment.